Can't stop, get a grip on lighting. I don't know what episode we're on now, Greg, somewhere in the 400s or something. We just keep rolling this thing out. On today's show, we have Philip Gotthelf. He is a world renowned authority on energy markets and technologies. His expertise dates back to the original formation of energy futures markets in the 1970s, where he worked directly with the New York Mercantile Exchange to popularize their crude oil and number two heating oil contracts. In response to the first Earth Day on April 22nd, 1970, Philip became a crusader against the five P's, the pollution targets of air, water, soil, light, and noise. In 1982, he revived Nikola Tesla's magnetic induction light to achieve energy efficiency and longevity while reducing light pollution and protecting soil and water from dispersed mercury contained in fluorescent tubes. In 2007, he created a line of modernized MIL under Ultratech Lighting, which is now operating as Tesla Induction Lighting, in deference to Nikola Tesla, who invented the technology. His design objectives include minimizing glare and light pollution to achieve dark sky compliance without sacrificing visual acuity, creating quiet drivers to address noise pollution, such as the 20,000 cycle harmonic that can disturb bats and canines, encapsulating mercury to render it environmentally inert, eliminating high frequency flicker to eliminate the dangers of strobe migraines or even epilepsy, and developing precise spectral tuning to provide the correct wavelengths for specific applications. His LinkedIn is there. His website's going to be in the show notes. You can all check it out below, Greg. But before we go anywhere else, we got to get a grip with Grip Block Systems.
We do, and you do as well. And I was just at a site the other day, a facility that they had some new lighting put in that was hung by chain. It was all crooked and sideways, and they actually asked us to go fix it. So what do we use to fix it? Grip Block. Easily adjustable without a tool. You go right up there, get it to the right level. No
Put your
chain
level
messing around,
on
no
it.
cutting.
Put your level and
Exactly.
get it right, buddy. Don't be
Easy.
a loser. Don't use jack chain. Use Grip
It's
Block Systems, baby. Of course, National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Do you have light bulbs in a warehouse? Do you have light fixtures in a warehouse? If you do, and you sell them over the counter on Amazon, on the internet, on the phone, in the field, this is your crucial shield. The National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, the toughest, badass mofos in the business, are nailed. That's right. And of course, don't be a chump. See you in Vegas in May, Greg Eric, at Light Fair.
May 4th through the 8th at Las Vegas Convention Center. You got to be there. It is our trade show, the lighting industry trade show. You got to get to it.
Don't be a chump by using jack chain. Don't be a loser and be at Light Fair in Vegas. Philip, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
So this is a fun topic, induction lighting. I want to get into. I know you got. We'll talk the dark sky and all that stuff, but just the technology of it. I have some newer salespeople that have never heard or seen induction. I ran into induction last week for the first time in years, and I've sold maybe 5 total projects over my life with induction. So I know a little bit, but not enough. But you're still rolling induction, is that right, Philip?
This is true. The induction light has been given a bad rap because it was invented in the 1890s by Nikola Tesla and introduced at the Chicago World's Fair in the same decade. He got into an argument with Edison that was made famous by, I think, a couple of documentaries and a movie where Tesla was very proud of the fact that he invented a fixture that would last almost indefinitely because it didn't have a vacuum and it didn't have a pressurized vessel and it had no filament. So there was really nothing to wear out. And Edison was horrified because how are you going to make money with a bulb that you sell once and that's the end of the sales cycle? So they fought, and Edison won, obviously, because the model at that time was planned obsolescence. And of course, that model still exists today in the laptop industry, the cell phone industry. Just about all of those technologies are still sold on the basis of trying to make sure they don't last that long. But in the world of lighting, the expense of replacing them today is so high, and the environmental impact of disposing of lights is so high that the sustainability aspect, that's probably even more significant than energy savings, is the longevity, the life cycle of the bulb. And so far, nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean literally nothing, beats the induction bulb. And to give you an example, Sylvania, when they were selling those lights, put an installation into New York City's Union Square Park in 1982. And those same fixtures are still working today. Sylvania mostly abandoned their induction product line for the same reason. It just lasted too long. And therefore, there wasn't a sales cycle that they could rely upon. My incentives to move forward with induction was not just the longevity of the product, but the science was stunning. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I think that Nikola Tesla was an alien. It's no way one human being could be so intelligent in so many different fields. That famous line that Einstein was quoted, they said, "How does it feel to be the smartest guy in the world, Einstein?" And he said, "I wouldn't know. Go ask Nikola Tesla." So there's truly admiration for this man's intellect. In any event, uh, because you're using an induction field to spin energy in a tube, the energy is at a constant rate, so it doesn't flicker. And when I say doesn't flicker, there's literally no flicker associated with induction. That's a really big problem, not just for the traditional bulbs that had this wavering vibration at 60 cycles due to the electricity being at 60 hertz, but with modern solid state lighting, like an LED, the flicker is a hard flicker. So it literally goes practically to zero. And although the flicker rate is above our conscious vision, our subconscious can see it at a 1,000th of a second. And that's been verified when they're training airline pilots, for example. They give a flash of light and it can be perceived at 1,000th of a second. So we're all familiar, maybe, with these modern day problems associated with artificial lighting. Migraine, strobe migraines, for example. Those are a huge problem. And they started to become more and more prevalent as office environments were switching over to save energy into the LED world. Then you have some other people who are even more unfortunate. They suffer from strobe epilepsy. And all these conditions are conditions that you can look up on the internet. It's not me just spewing forth rumors. These are realities that face the modern lighting environments, artificial lighting environments. Uh, the other problem is being emphasized in Europe, which are the forever chemicals that are in solid state lighting, the aluminum and gallium. And although they're in very small quantities on an individual basis, when you're talking about tens of thousands or millions of LED fixtures being deployed, when those things are disposed of, they're polluting the water, they're polluting the soil, and they're polluting the air. And so,
He's talking about
remarkable.
Greg. He's talking about the certified garbage.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
All the certified garbage that's coming down the pipeline. It's all been accredited and certified and paid for by
And it,
utilities to put into all these buildings.
and this is a serious problem
Hmm.
because we tend to emphasize carbon dioxide and energy savings over the original 5 Ps that were emphasized during the first Earth Day. So, what good is cutting your carbon footprint if your polluting footprint is enormous?
The
What good
idea, I'm just
is
going to interrupt you, Philip. The idea that
sure.
all this lighting was done in the name of sustainability is a joke. You cannot make the claim that LED light fixtures installed between 2014 and even today have any contribution to sustainability if they are purpose built fixtures solid state, because they're all going to be thrown in the garbage within 5 to 10 years. This is a
This
catastrophe.
is, and if you go to the internet and you look up the former largest producer of LEDs, Cree, they had 4 class action lawsuits against them because they overstated the longevity of their products. Some of these products have failed within the first 200 or 300 hours. And I don't have to tell you that for a municipality that uses union labor to replace a streetlight, for example, you're talking about the requirement to have first a union driver in the truck that delivers the light. Secondly, a union flagman to protect against accidents associated with shutting down a lane. Three, a laborer because the electrician is not allowed to bring the fixture to his own a bucket. So a laborer takes it out of the truck, brings it to the bucket. And then fourth, you got the union electrician who goes up there and actually replaces the fixture. This is, and I'm not anti-union by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still an incredible burden when you put a light up that's supposed to last 50,000 or 100,000 hours and it lasts less than 2,000.
Our rates, Philip, our rating and lighting has always been a lie. But and we have to go back to Greg because he has a lot of questions about induction.
Sure.
I promised him before we went into the rabbit hole that he would be allowed to ask questions about induction first. But I just want to make a quick comment before I put it over to Greg, and that is not only is that expensive, but it's a waste of our limited electrical labor resources in our society, which should be deployed to do other things than replace stupid LED light fixtures that are turning purple or burning out
Right.
way earlier than they were supposed to, Greg Eric.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I'm pretty sure they don't turn purple, the induction lights. But
No,
the
hardly.
yeah, so some of the induction questions I had, I mean, you answered well on why you're looking at or why you're going that route. How many companies still offer induction lighting? Do you know that answer?
Well, I know that in order to protect our supply chain, we actually have a dedicated number of factories. We produce, uh, you may be aware that during the Obama administration, the EPA was tasked with eliminating certain chemical processes in the United States, which basically made bulb manufacturing in the U.S. Illegal. And that included the chemicals that are used in LEDs, the mercury that are used in fluorescents, and some of the uh, phosphorus that was used, which is not organic and therefore is environmentally undesirable. Uh, so, so you had to go overseas to get bulbs, and we were included in that requirement. And then along came, so we were manufacturing in China. And then the Trump administration came in and put a 25% tariff on everything that we would bring in from China. So we started to diversify our product line between the United States and Asian resources. And that's where we remain today until perhaps we're allowed to manufacture once again in the United States. Um, the other things about the use of induction light. Sylvania still does support it. There was a very large $90 million plus street lighting project that was deployed in North New Jersey. So Sylvania, by default, is still in the business. And I can say that we were recently at a IES conference in Georgia on street lighting, and we were the only induction presenters there, which is both good and bad. It's good because we have no competition, and it's bad because we have no competition. It's as simple as that. So
Yeah.
that's. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
I
no, you
think.
did. You did. Because I don't know. I don't even. If somebody came to me and said, "I need an induction replacement," I would say, "I don't know where to go," but maybe I do
Right.
now. So,
I got some in
and
stock here if you want them.
you still have induction? You too.
Well,
Okay,
you
good.
know,
I know who to
No,
go to now.
I have a bunch of replacement lamps that nobody needs apparently because he says they never burn out. So maybe I'll never sell them. And
that is
I got a couple
that's
fixtures, high bays. the back there.
That's a problem. But we do a lot of warehouse lighting, and your mounting system might be a very good match for what we're doing in the world of
Get a grip.
warehouses and other
Get
universities.
grip lock systems,
That's right.
buddy.
There you go.
I
Don't
want
be a
to get a
loser.
grip on. I got to
Yeah,
get a grip on things. That's for sure. And it's
yeah.
amazing
So
how they can hang all kinds of fixtures almost upside down and backwards. So
Sure.
I'm very interested in teaming up with you for some of our future installations.
there you go.
But
Yeah, and just looking at your website, I see you have, Golf Bright, Snow Bright, Equine Bright, Grow Bright. You have all these different, market segments of your fixture. Is the product itself the same and the fixture different, or is there a different induction bulb going in these things?
right, so the form factor we've tried to make uniform so that if somebody is going to deploy our lamps and they need different applications, let's say a warehouse, but then needs parking lot lighting, it's the same form factor unless you're going to go to our Cobra Head street light. But we do change the spectral output of these lamps to match specifically the application. And let me give you the most obvious example in street lighting. So, as you guys probably are aware, the lighting industry wants to produce a generic light that fits all. It's an economic model as opposed to an application specific model. So they're going to give you a 5,000 Kelvin HID or LED, and they're going to hope that that works because visually you're not going to be a savvy consumer. So imagine that you're dealing with a 5,000 Kelvin lamp, or for the sake of argument, they want them to look yellow, so they make them a 3,000 Kelvin street light. And you've got a concrete surface, which is white top, and you got an asphalt surface, a surface which is black top, and you're going to try to illuminate these diametrically opposed reflective surfaces with the exact same kind of lamp. And it just blows away any science associated with visual acuity. Whereas we will use a rapid dispersion 6500 Kelvin lamp on white top and a rapid dispersion 10,000 Kelvin lamp on black top, where our dispersion is so fast that the high color temperature of the light becomes insignificant in terms of either a biological impact, that's a photobiological impact, or an environmental impact, as in dark sky compliance. Now, you notice that I described it as a rapid dispersion fixture. One of our alleged drawbacks is that I will not be able to throw light a mile down the road. That's not what we do. We do not blast light like a flashlight or like some of these LED lamps. Our objective is to take that lamp and spread the field almost instantly. You can actually look up at our light at close range and still be able to see. Whereas if you were using any other high intensity lamp, you would be blinded. Now, what does that do? That gives us the ability to create a very high color rendition index and a high contrast without the blue light impact and without the disturbing glare. Why is that important? Because the most significant aspect of driving down a road at night is visual acuity and contrast. Now, I don't know if you've experienced it, but I know millions of people have, where they're using yellow streetlights on the sides of the road, but the white lights that are produced by LED headlamps is so contrasted that you cannot see what's on the side of the road, even though it's lit by streetlight.
Let me interrupt you here for a second here because you said a lot of things that are completely new to me. I'm also the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast, which is a podcast about night preservation and darkness restoration. So you're claiming that you have 10,000 Kelvin lights So that would be very high in blue wavelength, correct?
Allegedly, yes.
Okay. And
Allegedly.
and so I'm not saying I agree or disagree with your claims. I'm very curious here. But I'm going to make this point. I want you to tell me if you agree with me or not. Is it fair to say that there's nobody in the world that knows how to properly illuminate the exterior environment at night and that we don't know how to do it? Period. End of the story.
Period. End of story. And from my perspective, as one who grew up with the concept of eliminating light pollution, the best light at night, artificial light at night, is none. Zero. And even though I'm in the lighting business, you'll never get me to change my opinion
Well,
that the
that should be the
best light.
starting point. So the problem we have in our society with exterior lighting at night is they're starting from a position that light is always good. And what you have to start from the position is that we start from the position is whether or not we need a light here. That should be the first position that we start from.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then what we know is that let's go back to prehistoric times with the human eye rendering under two lights, visual acuity under two lights, the sun during the day and the moon. Those were the only things we were, well, maybe a fire in the cave, but let's just leave it at moonlight would be the most significant light you would see in the evening. Now, you can't read under moonlight, even if it's a full moon on a clear day and you're up on a mountaintop where the air is thin, you still cannot read under moonlight. You don't have to take my word for it, give it a try. However, you can see under moonlight, and you're talking about a few lux at best. Your starting point should always be from moonlight and above. And when I say above, you want the minimum amount of light energy with a maximum amount of visual acuity. And that's the philosophy that we present all the time. One example is we just changed out lights in a ice skating rink in Troy, New York. It's called Freer Park. And they were going to actually go with LED lighting when they discovered that the light is so intense and bright that they can't see the puck. And that defeats the whole purpose. We actually decreased the lighting level by 66%. Yet we increased visual acuity by 40%.
I believe that. You know, what's interesting about what you're saying, Greg and I just did a light trespass outrageous lighting mitigation for the Lighting and Darkness Foundation in Rhode Island. And the lights in this guy's backyard with his neighbors, Greg, what was it, 162.8 foot candles he had in his backyard?
Yeah.
And we flew a drone over top of his backyard, and you could see the light bleaching out the colors of his backyard recreational center. The one area was fake grass in front of the soccer court, and the other area was like a blue tactile court for basketball. And you could see the areas where the blue had disappeared into the intensity of the light. That and it, the you're 100% right. We have to get into our heads that more light does not mean more visual acuity, and sunlight. And like if you're outside on that court during the day, and it's a sunny day in the summer, you're gonna have 100,000 lux on that court, or 100,000 foot candles, or something like ridiculous like that. But if you put 100,000 electric lux there, electric light lux, you burn people alive.
Right.
So electric
And
light and sunlight and moonlight are not the same thing, and people have to accept
it's
that.
it's about dispersion. And the easy how is it that we're able to see in the shade? Under sunlight, what most people don't understand is your light is coming totally from reflected surfaces.
Mm.
It's bouncing off of everything and it's deriving its color temperature from the environment. And I can prove to you with a color temperature spectral meter that there's no such thing as 6500K. I can fool a meter with a number of different spectral outputs, and it'll say 6500, 6500, and the spectral output is totally different because you're not measuring discrete wavelengths that are coming out of that fixture. So what we do with our blue content in a 10,000 Kelvin fixture is that if you read on our website, one of our components is a nanoparticle reflector that we can tune so that as soon as that blue light hits the reflector, it's spread much more rapidly. And what does that do? What that does is it gives you the visual acuity of a high energy short wavelength light without any of the adverse impact. And I can tell you, if you're looking at this at night, at this distance from your face, the amount of blue energy that's going into your brain is 100 times, if not 1,000 times, greater than the energy coming out of a 10,000K Ultratech and Tesla induction lighting fixture.
Now, so I
And
just want to
that's
remind the audience that these are manufacturer claims. Very interested, Philip, in what you're saying. But Greg, I want to throw it back over to you. You've been sitting there listening to all this, and
No, this is great.
bring it back.
Yeah,
Bring it back to get a grip on lighting here.
yeah. So a little like induction wise, I got a few more technical questions. So I know you said lumen output doesn't matter, but I want to know what is the max lumen output you can get out of induction?
okay. So one of the things that we know it's uh, it's based upon prior knowledge of induction. Induction was thought to be between 75 and 85 lumens per watt. The efficacy of those. But that's because they were using old manufacturing techniques. Date back to 1890. They weren't using a polished interior bulb. They weren't using coating methodologies that can increase the efficiency and efficacy of the bulb. We go between 85 and 105 lumens per watt. Now, it's not the 200 lumens per watt that you're going to get out of some of these claimed LED fixtures. We don't want that. We don't want that because that kind of intensity can literally burn a hole in your retina. Now,
Yeah.
again, my claim, but if you look at some of the studies that have been done by ophthalmologists and certainly environmental biologists, you're talking about known disturbances to owls that have to turn their head away. They turn their head away from LED lights and then they hit buildings or they hit trees. It's just don't get me started.
Well, we have. How about a few other questions?
Mark
Kelvin count.
Baker, and Philip are going to fall in love with each other. I'm
Yeah,
telling
I
you.
think so.
I'm going to bring you on the Restoring Darkness podcast. There's going to be a love affair between Mark Baker.
You got
Well,
to keep an eye
I
out for
actually
that
want to
one.
get him.
Yeah. Is it so? You said 65K and 10K. Do you have any other Kelvin temps that you offer?
We can. If you want to really get excited, if you look at our website, we can produce wavelengths all the way down to 180 nanometers that produces vacuum ultraviolet to sterilize rooms in seconds as opposed to minutes and hours. So we can go all the way down to ultraviolet, full spectrum from vacuum UV all the way to UVA and UVB, or we can go all the way up to the near infrared and infrared ranges. So we can go 1500 Kelvin, 2500 Kelvin, 3000. Now, here's the issue though. What's the purpose of that? If the purpose is to produce a lamp that promotes sleep, absolutely. But and here's where we may have some discussions about the use of amber versus the use of white light. The whole problem that's been identified is the fact that the amber light that they're talking about has come from sodium, and sodium can truncate ultraviolet. But if you really want to get technical, take a spectrometer and look at a 3,000 or 2,500 Kelvin LED, and it still has this big spike in the blue, but it's
Yeah, it's true.
obscured.
It's true.
It's obscured by the redness that they inject into the filtration or the phosphorus that creates that light. This this is not solving the
It's
blue
it's
light
not it's
problem.
not it's not filtered out. That's not the right way to describe it. If you want to describe it for someone that in non-technical terms, you would say like the blue light has been dyed or something
Yeah.
is a better kind of comparison to what's happening, but it's still there and it still has the same impact.
Well, an orthopedist who's in love with our lights gave me an analogy from the orthopedic world. He says they put a cuff on your arm or your leg and they start to squeeze it to find out what your pain level is relative to an injury. So when you can't feel the squeeze of the cuff relative to the pain of your knee, they keep adding pressure until you are finally aware of the cuff versus the pain in your knee. This is the same thing with lighting. If you obscure the blue light with enough red, you no longer become aware of the blue, but your pineal gland is
Mm.
seeing the blue like nobody's business. And here's something that I shocked an orthopedic ophthalmological conference on blue light. They were thinking of using a near violet light for germ control during COVID. And I looked at the spectrum that they were going to use and I said, what do you do about tetrachromates? 17% of the human population sees in four colors. You and I, if we're lucky and we're not colorblind, we see in three colors. And the fourth color is in the deep blue range. It's almost near ultraviolet. So you're going to drive 17% of the population crazy with this new technology that you're introducing. The people were shocked because they hadn't thought of it.
You know what, Greg? You know what's interesting about all of this? There's an interesting movement. The lighting industry might get corrected by ophthalmologists. There's ophthalmologists that are actually diagnosing people with distress glare and these types of different syndromes caused by LED lights. And there's a growing, I don't know if it's a movement yet, you would call it that, but there's a lot of ophthalmologists that are saying, hey, these heavy glare, flickering LED lights are very unhealthy. And I think it's going to come from eye scientists rather than the lighting industry itself. You have any thoughts on that, Philip?
I am always looking at the science. You know, we can go to Google Scholar and look up thousands of studies on vision. And it's shocking because we know from these studies how the human eye works. Yet the lighting industry ignores it completely. I've spoken to lighting engineers who have no clue how the human eye really reacts. Examples, where the iconic brand, our Snow Bright lighting for ski slope illumination is the iconic brand now because we've gotten dark sky approvals all over the United States, including the National Forest Service, the National Park Service, and even the University of Wyoming's observatory gave us a green light on our lighting. Now, in the meantime, you've got the lighting industry refusing to acknowledge how the human eye works. You're driving down the street, you've got a 120 cycle flicker in your new street lighting. Do you know that that removes 7 feet of depth perception per second? In other words, you don't know how close you are to the car in front of you. And so
Crazy.
they're just not talking about it. The road illumination people know this problem exists. So what do? It's like cigarettes. Oh, we know it causes cancer, but we're not going to tell you about it because it's not good for our business model. This is insane.
Right.
And of course, again, don't get me started because
Well,
My
I
blood
think
pressure's up.
I'm going to jump in here, but I know you, Mike, is you guys are going to continue this conversation. I'm sure you get a lot more into it on restoring darkness. But last question for the Get a Grip audience I want to ask is, and maybe you said it earlier, but if that's the one, maybe one other one. What's the most recent induction project you've done?
Oh, well, we're doing them all the time. In the ski world, we just did Appalachian Ski Trail. We
Hmm.
have a large installation at Steamboat for the proof of longevity. They've been going on, they'll go on their 19th season without a single failure. So, and that's in the worst of the worst conditions, minus 20 degrees, 120-mile-an-hour winds, snow, sleet, ice. Um, in terms of street lighting, we even have a pilot program in France because they're so anti-LED now that if it's rolled out, we'll go to Provence. We'll swap out all of their street lighting using induction.
Wow.
So warehouses, we've done dozens of warehouses. We're being reviewed by the Tennessee Valley Authority for street lighting projects in Tennessee. So to give you, I mean, on our website there are specific references to our customers, and in the field of ultraviolet sanitizing, it's almost explosive because our lamp, which was designed before COVID, was designed to address animal facilities because animals are very important to keep healthy. We eat them, you know. We don't want sick animals in our on our tables. And so, as you know, there's, for example, a huge pandemic of avian flu that's decimated bird flocks throughout the world. Our lamp hopes to, and can, we can prove it, eliminate avian flu from the breeding facilities, from poultry farms. So it's remarkable, as I said. Tesla touched, his technology touches every aspect of creating electromagnetic energy, which light is.
Before we go to gripblocksystems.com, Greg Eric, don't be a loser.
Yeah.
Don't use jack chain. Use gripblock systems. I want to say something about Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla wasn't intelligent. He was creative. Those are two fundamentally different things. Edison was intelligent in the traditional IQ test sense. Tesla has something that we do not know how to measure, and that's extreme creativity and imagination and vision. And it's something our society regrettably cannot identify and measure. But you got to go to gripblocksystems.com, Greg Eric. You don't want to be a loser. You
That's
want to make
right. You want to be
sure that you're getting those fixtures level, they're not crooked, all that kind of stuff, Greg.
yeah, no jack chain. This is toolless adjustability right on there. Lets you lower, raise wherever you need to get it and make it straight. That's what you want, a straight fixture.
And if you have light bulbs in a warehouse, come on, guys. Nailed is your crucial shield. NAILD.org. We're putting out a new controls certification coming up in Lightovation in July. Nailed is everywhere, man. We're going to be at Light Fair. Don't be a chump. Be in Vegas in May. Greg, what are the dates?
May 4th through the 8th in Las Vegas Convention Center. You got to be there.
You
It's a
got to be
lighting trade
there.
show. It's
Come
the number
on,
one.
man.
Get
Woo.
there. Let's go.
So go to Light Fair. And of course, Philip Gotthelf. Gotthelf? That's a tough one. I got it. Okay. You can check out all of his stuff on the Get a Grip on Lighting website. Scroll down. His LinkedIn will be there. The website for his company will be there. And of course, we thank all of our colleagues that listen to this that don't have podcasts. Thank you for listening to this, and bye for now.